Hi, welcome to the second video in Ansible for network automation. Now in the previous video we downloaded and installed the GNS3 client, we created a basic topology with the default devices, and we imported a C3725 Dynamips image and created a basic topology. Alright, the next steps that we're going to get to in this video include downloading the GNS3 VM, the VM Workstation Pro, downloading the VIRL images and the Network Automation Appliance, and then we're going to start installing first with the VM Workstation Pro. We're going to integrate the GNS3 VM, then we're going to import the VIRL images and the Network Automation Appliance, and then we're going to create a topology and start automating. All right, let's get to it. These are all the downloads that we're going to do. I'm going to have all the links in the description, so don't worry about copying or anything like that. But we're going to go do all the downloads at once, and then we're going to start installing and configuring. All right, so first we're going to get the GNS3 VM. And I'm out here just at gns3.com, and I'm going to click on Download. Then Download VM for GNS3, this link right here. And then I'm going to download this one right here for VM Workstation and Fusion. And one other thing of note is that the version, see that it specifies the version here, 2.2.10. It has to be the same exact version as we have for the GNS3 client. All right, then in order to find the VM Workstation Pro download, I'm just going to type in VM Workstation Pro into Google. Download it autofilled for me since I already had that. All right, and then it takes us to this screen. Perfect. And then I'm just going to click right here on Download Now because this is 15.5 for Windows. That's going to start that download. All right, then in order to download the Network Automation Appliance, we're going to go to just gns3.com and click on Marketplace. And then on the left-hand side here, we're going to click on Appliances. And then we're going to click on Network Automation. It's the first one here. Then I'm going to select that for download. And then lastly, we are going to go and get the Cisco VIRL images. Right, so here I am in my account for Cisco Network Learning Store. And you can see my order here. And we're just going to click on this download link right here. And in order to find the images, we're going to go to this number 1 right here and click. And you can see that you can download a bunch of different stuff in here. But for our purposes, I am just going to download. I'm going to download this one right here. This this one on the bottom that's 4005E. So I'm going to download this image. This is going to be our switch image. And it's going to want me to accept, which I will do. And then I'm going to click on iOS B. And I'm going to download this one here on the bottom. I'm pretty sure all these will work, but these are just the ones that I've been using and I know that they work. Download and accept. All right, so now all our stuff is downloaded. Now we're going to get to installing. So here I am in my downloads folder. The first installation we're going to do is VM Workstation Pro. And so I'm just going to double click on this to get it started. All right, so after a brief pause, it opened up on another window, but I've dragged it over. So now I'm just going to pretty much do a next install here and just go with the defaults. All right, so it's finally done, and then it prompts for a restart because we have that driver in there, and I'm going to say yes and restart my computer now. All right, so I'm just putting this slide in here after the fact because I forgot to talk about it as I was installing VM Workstation. But the VTX must be enabled in the BIOS of your PC. And this is a piece of it you're probably going to have to go figure out for yourself since it's different for every single computer. But if you don't have it enabled, you're going to get error messages, and you won't be able to go any further if you don't figure it out. I have rebooted my computer, and now I am going to click on Continue here to start the 30-day trial. Finish. All right, so before we can integrate the VM, we have to unpack this, or extract rather. All right, so there that is. Okay. All right, so before we integrate this GNS3 VM, one thing that I wanted to note that I have found to be important is that before you even install the VM Workstation Pro, and I forgot to mention this, is that you want to make sure that you have your GNS3 client turned off before you install VM Workstation Pro and before you integrate the GNS3 VM. All right, and to integrate the GNS3 VM, we go up to click on File, and then Open. Select the GNS3 VM, click Open. Leave that name the same, and let it import. All right, the next step is going to be powering this on. Okay, now I'm starting back up GNS3 here. All right, so now we have GNS3 powered on. We've got the workstation powered up. We've got the blue background, and that's looking the way we want it to look. And now the next goal is going to be to get both of these turned on green here. And so in order to fully integrate the GNS3 VM into the client, we go up to Edit, Preferences, and then we select GNS3 VM. We're going to click Enable. This is already selected, but you want to select the VMware Workstation. And then this also has to pick this up, and you want to see the GNS3 VM. This is going to be the name of the VM. And so then we're specifying the port, the RAM, and the vCPUs. So the amount of resources that you put here is just going to be completely dependent on what you have on your computer. I have 64 gigs of RAM, so I'm putting basically 24 gigs to this server, and I'm going to give it 4 vCPUs. Hit Apply. Okay. I'm going to create a new project. All right, so I did run into an issue that you might run into as well. So after going in and changing the settings here to integrate the GNS3 VM, it did not come up immediately. I restarted the GNS3 program along with the VM Workstation program, and I wasn't able to get both lights to turn green until I fully rebooted my PC. And I've run into this a few times, especially if you keep your workstation on like all day or whatever. If you're going to be using a lot of GNS3, it's probably going to increase the amount of times that you reboot your computer. All right, so our next step is going to be importing the VIRL images. Just go up to File, and this is the method that I've been doing. Select plus new template right here. Install the appliance on the GNS3 server. And that would be opposed to using it on the client, which you have to put it on the server. Just make sure you're always using the QEMU emulator ones. That's what the VIRL images use. So we'll do the router first here. So I'm going to click on that one and then hit Install. Install on the GNS3 VM. Next. Next. Okay, so for the startup config, you can highlight this one just like this and then hit download, which is going to open up a link to SourceForge where it starts downloading. All right, so now we have that startup config right here in our folder. And since now it's there, we can hit import. All right, so here it is. So I'm going to just open that. And I think this is the one that we're going to be importing. And since we already have this downloaded, we're just going to hit import. And we select that one. And so in order to install this one, I'm just going to click on it since it's ready to install. I'm going to click Next. Yes. Finish. It has been imported successfully. Okay. And then we can see it is now a menu item there. Then we're going to do the same thing for our switch image. Go to switches, hit the little arrow. iOS VL2 install on the GNS3. Yes. Next. All right, so I'd previously imported the image, right? So I had to go and hit import and then select that image and import it. So now it's ready to go, so I'll click on that right there. Next. Yes. Finish. All right, now we can see that we have our switch image there as well. All right, the next step is going to be importing the Network Automation Appliance. In order to do that, we're going to use pretty much the same method. I'm going to go up to File, select New Template. And then I'm going to open up the Guests category, and I'm going to scroll down to where it says Network Automation. There's two of them. One says Custom. I'm going to select the one that is not Custom. I'm going to click Install. Install the appliance on the GNS3 VM. All right, now we will check to see if it's there. And you can see that the network automation device is there. All right, and now we are ready to build a topology and start automating. All right, so I'm just throwing this slide in here so that I'm able to speed up the installation video so that this video isn't too long. All right, so the first thing that I did is I drag on the network automation appliance. I drag on one of the 3725 routers. Then I pull on two of the iOS B routers. And then you'll see me change the name, change the symbol, and duplicate the device. Changing the name is done by double-clicking on the name itself, and then it allows you to change the name to what you want it to. Changing the symbol is done by right-clicking on the symbol, and then you can drag down about halfway down on the drop-down menu, and then it allows you to select from one of the other symbols. And then you duplicate a device also by right-clicking on it, and then there's just an option to duplicate the device. It can be quicker to do it that way if you're going to make a bunch of the same type of device. Then I drag on the default Ethernet switch. Nothing needs to be configured on the Ethernet switch. It's just the main central device of this particular lab that everything connects to. And then I pull on a NAT cloud, which will allow us to give DHCP to the network automation appliance. And then I pull on two of the iOS V layer 2 switches. So yeah, then I use the connector tool to connect everything to the Ethernet switch. And then I power everything on. Oh, and one last thing. Most of the devices, when you drag and drop them onto the topology in GNS3, it's going to ask you whether or not you want to put the device on the GNS3 VM or if you're going to want to run it on the client. Universally, for every time that it asks me, I'm going to be putting it on the VM. Okay, so we're just going to get to it and start building the topology. So by the way, clicking on this button right here will allow you to see all of the devices that you have, whereas this would just be routers, switches, your PC, NAT cloud type devices. That's for firewalls, which we have none. And then next we're going to open up the console. This button right up here by my cursor is how you open up the consoles for all devices at once, by the way. All right, now that we have that completed, the next thing I'm going to do is we are going to get an IP address on our network automation device. And the way that we do that is by executing this command that I have highlighted right here. So nano, etc, network, and interfaces. So I'm just going to paste that into my network automation command line. And then what we do, bring our cursor down here and delete that out and delete that out. The pound symbol is what tells the server that it's just a comment, and so when you delete the pound symbol, that's what activates these commands. So this basically just tells it to give the Ethernet 0 interface an IP address with DHCP. And then I'm going to hit Control X to exit out and save. So then it asks me if I want to save, and I hit Y for yes. And then it is asking me if this is the place that I want to save it, or if I want it to be a different folder, I could specify a different folder, but I'm just going to hit enter. And then the way that you check to see what the IP addresses are on the server is with the command ifconfig, which is short for interface config. All right, and you can see here that we do not have an IPv4 address that we can use yet. Okay, so in order to force it to get an IP address from DHCP, what we're going to do is power the Network Automation Appliance off, then back on. Okay, so now we can see that it has rebooted back up and we're at the CLI. Hit ifconfig again. And we can see that it has pulled an IP address right here. Okay, so now that we know what the network is, that the IP address for the Network Automation Appliance is, we're going to give everything else IP addresses in this range. Basically so that the management network is very simple and everything's in the same VLAN. Also, one thing I forgot to do earlier is this ABC thing is actually going to show you, it's going to put interface labels on all the connections, so I'm going to enable that here too because it makes it kind of helpful. All right, so now we're going to configure IP addresses on all the other devices. All right, so if you look at my notepad here, I've got this enlarged and pulled up so that you can screenshot this configuration if you're following along and you want to use the exact configuration that I have. As you can see, I've got the routers in the .50 range, and then I put the switches starting in the 60s range. Now that all the devices should have IP addresses in the same subnet, I'm going to complete the configuration on the Network Automation Appliance. All right, so the first thing that we're going to configure is the Ansible.config file. So there is a default Ansible.config file, but we're not going to worry about that too much right now. We're just going to create our own Ansible.config file in the root folder that will override the default one. And again, if you want to screen cap this and put that in, that's going to be the easiest way to do it. Right, so first I will create this nano in. I'm going to copy that in like that and hit Control X, hit Y, and then return. You can do more Ansible CFG to look at it. All right, so an important line to make note of here is this inventory equals my host. So this is going to reference the hosts that we are going to be automating, which means that we have to create a my host file. And we're going to do that same thing. So we're going to go nano my host and create a my host file in the root directory. So what this does is it creates groups of devices that we're going to go out and configure. You don't have to have these, you don't have to have multiple groups. You could just create one and just call it devices or all, and then it would just be that one group. But this will allow us to have a group of routers that we can specify with this name right here, routers, if we want to send specific configuration to the routers, and then likewise for the switches. And so I'm going to hit Control X again. Y, and then enter. Alright, so you can see those there. And then there's one more file that we need to configure. And this is going to be the etc host file. So this is going to be the file where we create the mappings of the IP address to hostname. Right, so I'm just going to copy this in here. Bring my cursor down beneath what's already in there by default, and then just paste that in there, Control X, Y, enter. All right, so if all this is configured correctly, then we should be able to verify this with the following command here. Okay, so there you can see the list of all the hosts that we have. which is what we want to see. All right, and then you can see you can run the same command and verify all of the host names that are in the group routers. So if we send out a command that's targeted at routers, it's going to process the devices in the order that we see here. And the same for all. If we sent out a command that was going to automate devices, it's going to do it in the order that you see here. All right, now also I've just got a list of all the verification commands that you're going to use on the Network Automation Appliance to verify our configuration here. So if you want to screen cap that or copy it down, there you go. All right, so at this point we should have ping connectivity to all of the devices. So we're going to ping by hostname. This will test that the hostname to IP address resolution is working within the server and if we have connectivity to the devices. All right, so we do to R1, even though there isn't an R1. And I just realized that our Etsy host is off because I had renamed the routers R2 through R4, so I'm going to fix that real quick. Okay, so now our ping should be working. That works. R3 works. R4. Do switch 1. Switch 2. Okay, so we can ping all by hostname. All right, and the last thing that we need to configure is the SSH accessibility to these remote devices. So right now I'll just do a test and verify that it's currently not working from the network automation device. We know that we can ping it, but if we try an SSH, it shouldn't work. All right, so the connection is refused. That is as expected. And then I have this configuration right here that I'm just going to copy and paste and put it into all of the routers and switches. Okay, so now it's been configured, so we should be able to perform the same test and it should work. Are you sure you want to continue connecting? I'm going to type in yes. That's asking for the password, which is Cisco. So the username is Cisco. The username and password is Cisco. So I'll just type in Cisco, hit enter, and as you can see right here, R2. So right now I'm inside R2. So I'll hit exit, and now we're back to the CLI of the server. And just real quick, I'm going to test all the rest of these as well. We've verified connectivity. We've verified that we're able to SSH to all of the devices. And now we are ready to start automating. All right, so this video has already turned out to be much longer than I initially thought that it would, but I did promise you at the beginning that we would complete building a topology and perform automation by the end of it, so that's what we're going to do. And now what I've got here in my notepad is an ad hoc Ansible command. So what's an ad hoc command? Ad hoc commands are basically just the operation of performing a single command on a device, and it doesn't need a full playbook to do it. So I'm going to copy this right here. If we were running a playbook, this first argument would be Ansible playbook, but this one's just going to be Ansible, and then we're going to be running this on the R1 device. And then this -m is an argument for module, and the module that we're going to be using is the raw module. There is documentation on the raw module on the Ansible website, but we're not going to go into that right now. And then -a allows us to specify an argument, which is going to basically be the command that we're going to execute on the on router 1, which is show version. And then this -u means that we're going to be using the username of Cisco, and -k means that it will prompt us for a password when we try and execute it. All right, so I hit enter, Now it's prompting us for the SSH password. I'm going to have Cisco. And then I get the error, of course, because I forgot that we don't have an R1 there, and it's R2. All right, so I will just correct that and paste that in. Prompts for the password again. Okay, and then all of this yellow output is from the show version command on R2. All right, so that concludes this video. In this video, we were able to install everything, integrate and configure everything, and we were able to create a topology and start automating. Now in the next video, we're going to fully flesh out the ad hoc commands, and we're going to get into Ansible playbooks. So if you're getting value out of this, please consider liking the video and subscribing, and I'll see you in the next one.